I forgave my wife the first time she cheated, but when she did it again, I stopped playing nice. I took the house, won custody of the kids, and left her with nothing but regret. Hello Reddit I plus here. I forgave my wife for cheating years ago. This year, I caught her in our bed with another man. I divorced her, got primary custody of our kids and the house, and later, without getting into illegal details, I anonymously exposed enough workplace misconduct that she lost her job. No physical violence beyond one punch in the heat of the moment. I kept the kids, kept the home, and have been rebuilding my life. Am I a monster? Maybe. Here's the whole thing. I'm 47. She's 39. I'll call her Maya. We'd been married for 16 years when everything went sideways for real. We have 2 kids, a daughter, 12, and a son, 7. The kids are the reason I held my tongue for so long in the first place. We weren't a perfect couple, but for the most part, we did right by the kids. I ran a small business that allowed me a semi-flexible schedule. Maya worked in a mid-sized professional services firm. Not law this time, different industry. After our son was born, Maya suffered a pretty severe case of postpartum depression. She wasn't herself for months. I took on more than half the nighttime parenting. I slept on the couch a lot, and I thought I was doing what a partner should do. One night, about when the baby was 3 months old, she told me she'd gone out to breathe. She came back looking like a different person, flushed, sad, guilty. Later that night, she sat me down and told me she'd slept with someone. I remember the exact way she said it, like a confession she wanted taken as penance. We fought about it on the inside, and then pretended to be fine on the outside. I swallowed the humiliation. We both decided we wouldn't make the kids pay for it. Maybe I was a coward. Maybe I was trying to keep a family together. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, and we moved on. For 10 years, we maintained a surface normality. I compartmentalized the memory, tucked it into a box, and told myself it was a one-off caused by a fragile moment. I rationalized a lot of things. People judged then, and they'll judge now, and I've come to accept that. I have a predictable routine. I wake early, work, take the kids to school some days, pick them up other days. Everyone who knows me knows roughly where I am, and I like it that way. One afternoon, a neighbor I get along with, call him John, rang me at work. He sounded sheepish and awkward, and ended up saying something like, "You might be overreacting, but I've seen a dark sedan at your place a few times when you're not there." I only mention it because, well, I'd want someone to tell me. That pinged something in me, and memories I'd kept boxed up rattled. I told work I needed a little break, and I went home. I parked down the street. I didn't want to announce myself, and I wasn't trying to be cinematic. I was terrified of what I might find. I came in the back door and it smelled wrong. Not a perfume, but the kind of unfamiliar cologne that announces, "Someone slept here." Upstairs, a shirt lay on the landing and a pair of shoes were kicked by our bedroom door. Through the slightly ajar door I heard the noise you can't unhear. 2 people, thinking they were private. I could have left. I should have left. But this is our bed. Our kid's laundry lives in there. I walked in. He was startled. She scrambled under the sheets like a kid who'd been caught sneaking cookies. The man, clearly not expecting me, yanked his trousers up and tried to explain himself as he ran for the door. My brain went into something animal and I hit him one clean hook. He toppled, blood on his lip, and I watched him scramble to his car and drive away. She sat there, shaking. In that moment, every soft excuse I'd been telling myself for a decade vaporized. "This is over," I said. "I want a divorce. I'm taking the kids. You're done." I left. I didn't physically assault her. I didn't do anything on-camera dramatic beyond the slap of a fist, but I left very deliberately. I didn't react like a man in a movie. I called a lawyer the next morning, and I started building a case. I went to the house to see the kids, and I stayed deliberately calm. They can't know their parents' fights. My lawyer, who I later realized was much better than I deserved, asked for anything that would show she'd been bringing strange adults into the home while the kids were there. Messages, witnesses, anything. We discovered a few small things that painted a picture. Notes from a caregiver about unfamiliar visitors, a neighbor who'd testified to random cars arriving, and enough breadcrumbs to show a pattern rather than a single lapse. I won't bore you with legal minutia. The point is that the argument we made was that it was not safe for the kids or their emotional well-being to remain in an environment where strangers were being brought into their home. After months of ugly negotiations, depositions, and paperwork, I was awarded primary physical custody and kept the family home. We split legal custody. She's still their mom in the formal sense. I pay child support and alimony that's manageable but not trivial. We also agreed on a schedule that minimizes disruption for the kids. It cost me a lot emotionally and financially. It was worth it to me to get them away from that environment. The thing with her job, I'm not proud of the methods. I'm going to be blunt here, because I promised honesty. I wanted her life to have consequences beyond losing our marriage. I wanted to hit back in a way that made her feel the same exposure and precariousness she'd brought into our home. I found evidence, documents, emails, vague things that suggested she'd been careless and possibly exposed proprietary material at work. I will not detail how I accessed those documents. There's no tutorial in this post. Suffice to say, I came into possession of workplace files that showed she'd behaved unprofessionally and recklessly. I didn't post them publicly. I didn't blackmail her. I worked with a friend to anonymously tip her employer about potential confidentiality breaches. The firm opened an internal inquiry. Long story short, without technical details, the internal investigation concluded she'd violated company policy and she was let go. Was I proud? Number. Was it satisfying to hear her voice when she called, suddenly not as arrogant as before, asking about alimony because things were tight at work? Yes, it hit me in a place I didn't know existed, and it felt like closure. I accept the moral ambiguity here. We don't live in a world where I could have made her lose custody without evidence she endangered the kids. I used what I found to press for consequences that the legal system and the workplace also recognized. If you think what I did was illegal or immoral, I get it. I wrestle with that myself. Aftermath. What I learned. Kids, they're doing okay. They see both parents on set schedules. They're resilient in ways you wouldn't expect. They deserve peace, stability, and a life that isn't papered over by adult lies. Me. I lost faith in one of the people I trusted most. That wound is slow to heal. I also learned that my willingness to forgive once did not mean I would be blind forever. Revenge. It felt good in a vengeful, childish way. It didn't fix the past. It didn't unmake the humiliation I felt the first time, but it did provide a sense of balance that helped me move forward. I come here mostly to get perspective. I did not harm the kids. I did not physically injure my wife beyond making a scene. I took steps to legally protect my children and myself, but I crossed a line in how I handled things afterward. I didn't want to be a passive victim again. I wanted leverage and consequences. Maybe that makes me petty. Maybe it makes me smart. So internet, judge me. Was what I did reasonable under the circumstances, or did I stoop too low? I want to hear from people who were in similar situations, people who forgave and were betrayed again, parents who had to make hard custody calls, and people who've had to decide how far to go to protect their kids and themselves. A couple of people asked if I had proof of the initial cheating from years ago. No. It was her word. She confessed then, and we didn't fight it through legal channels. That's one reason I gave her a chance. I regret that now. Update. The divorce is finalized. The kids are stable. I've started dating casually again, but I'm not rushing anything. I'm taking therapy seriously. Thank you to the people who offered real, human advice, rather than just telling me to burn it all down. After the dust settled from the divorce, Maya did not disappear quietly. She doubled down. At first, it was the classic play. Late night, I didn't mean it texts that turned into dramatic voicemails meant to be overheard. Sudden displays of contrition on social media, and a clutch of mutual friends getting dragged into the narrative that I'd ruined the family. Then it escalated into more overt legal and emotional pressure. Threats in mediation about claiming I'd been absent, hints at filing for full custody, and an attempt to weaponize our shared history into sympathy from judges and counselors. She tried every angle. She hired a new lawyer and piled on allegations about my supposed neglect, conveniently ignoring all the school calendars, health records, and the nights I'd actually taken off work for sick children. She arranged staged drop-ins where she'd show up to the kids' activities and linger until a witness would ask why she was making a scene. She started leaving gifts and notes for the kids that read like guilt traps. I miss our family. Tell Dad I'm trying. The idea, I later learned, was to build a public perception that she was the repentant parent and I was the cold, unfeeling one. That strategy failed for a simple reason. The evidence didn't match the story. I kept records, school pickup logs, messages where she admitted things, witness statements from neighbors about unknown cars and men in the house, and notes from a child psychologist who'd seen the kids and reported signs of instability. At mediation, the counselor's testimony about the kids' need for stability and the timeline of events cut through the theatrics. Judges see through performative remorse when the documentation points the other way. The custody hearings were painful. but they were also an environment where facts mattered more than feelings. In the end, none of her manipulative theatrics were enough to overcome the material evidence that supported keeping the kids with me. Months later, after losing her job and her legal footing, Maya switched tactics again, this time toward personal reconciliation. Her messages softened. Pictures of the kids with captions like, "I'd do anything to fix this," surprise calls trying to catch me vulnerable, and a few showy attempts to be helpful that were obviously photographed later for social media. She even tried a few staged run-ins at the kids' events where she'd cry in front of other parents and then approach me with a hug. It felt like one more attempt to create optics rather than actually change. I didn't fall for it. I responded with clear boundaries. Visits were coordinated through our custody agreement. Conversations about the kids were to be civil and child-focused, and anything outside that was redirected to therapy or our lawyers. When she tried to gaslight me about what she'd done, insisting I was overreacting or exaggerating past events, I let the record speak. I stopped engaging in the emotional tug-of-war she wanted. I also started showing up for myself. Therapy, weekend trips that didn't involve her, and slowly dating again when I felt ready. In the end, she didn't get what she wanted. A clean reset with me and full control of the kids. She kept contact, sometimes cooperative, sometimes needy, but I'd already moved on. Not in the cinematic I stomp on her goodbye way, but in a quieter, healthier sense. I reclaimed the narrative of my life, made sure the kids had stability, and refused to be manipulated into emotional chaos. If anything, the hardest lesson was learning that forgiveness doesn't mean you have to keep inviting the same pain back in. I still want the kids to have a relationship with their mother when it's safe and honest. I just wasn't going to be the person who endlessly sacrificed my own boundaries to make her feel better.